Asterisk when Jasmine Crockett went live, she didn't just embarrass the president. She set off a political explosion that no one saw coming. The anchor's smile was fake. The studio lights were hot, but Jasmine's face stayed like stone. She wasn't there to trade talking points. She was there to break open the silence across the country. People at dinner tables, in airports, in hospital waiting rooms were watching and leaning in. The host pretended to be surprised even though they'd rehearsed twice. Asking Congresswoman, "What exactly are you saying?" And without blinking, she said, "I'm saying the First Lady refused to attend the Jakarta summit not because of scheduling conflicts, but because she refused to participate in something she believed was fabricated." There was half a second of silence, the kind you feel in your bones before the chaos hit. Producers barking into earpieces, the anchor tightening his grip under the desk, but Jasmine didn't stop. She said internal memos were altered, security protocols broken, and there was a paper trail that led straight back to misused taxpayer dollars and a cover-up by the president's inner circle. She reached down and opened a folder. Inside were real papers stamped and signed, not rumors, not leaks, but proof. She held one up. "This," she said, "is Melania Trump's security clearance adjustment request from 2 months ago. On it, she withdraws from the Indonesia trip, stating in writing that the purpose had shifted to, quote, non-governmental priorities." The anchor tried to cut her off, but she talked right over him. Flight logs showed 2 planes, one carrying official delegates and one for personal use. That second plane made stops in Switzerland for banking meetings, not on any official schedule. In living rooms across America, phones lit up. Hashtags started trending before the interview was even over. In a private dining room off the West Wing, Trump sat alone, watching, gripping the remote so tightly his knuckles went pale. Turn that off, he barked to no one in particular, then muted the sound. But Jasmine was still talking calmly, listing names, dates, routing codes, every piece verifiable. The president stormed out of the room, staffers trying to catch up with him. "Mr. President, get my damn lawyer on the phone." He didn't wait for a reply back in the studio. The host asked, "Are you implying something about the First Lady?" "I'm not implying anything," Jasmine said. "I'm reading from documents requested by congressional oversight." Melania Trump withdrew because she didn't want her name used to justify backdoor transactions, and "I'm not done." Her final document was an internal memo from the First Lady's chief of staff, the signature faint but the words clear: "We do not advise participation in the Jakarta trip under current terms," citing her disapproval of unofficial itinerary changes and concern over misuse of agency resources. That memo had never been leaked before, and with that the segment ended. She closed the folder, looked into the camera, and said, "You can argue about the politics, but the documents don't lie." By the time the network cut to commercial, the internet had already exploded. The hashtag Crockett was right hit the top trending list. Within the hour, newsrooms tore up their plans. Aides at the Capitol texted each other screenshots, and in one congressional office, a staffer whispered she actually said it at the network headquarters. Phones rang nonstop. Producers fielded angry calls from White House communications screaming she can't say that on live TV, and the producer replying she just did. 35 minutes later, the White House communications team was in full lockdown. Upstairs, the president paced the Oval Office like a caged animal, shouting at aides, snapping glasses in half and slamming folders to the floor. But what nobody watching knew was that 6 days before, Jasmine had been sitting alone in a parked black sedan outside a small law office in Fredericksburg, Texas. No cameras, no staff, no security, just her and a nervous energy that had kept her awake for 2 nights. The door opened and a man in a wrinkled beige suit motioned her in without a word. The office smelled of dust and burnt coffee. He locked the door, drew the blinds, and asked, "Are you sure you want to see this? Once it's in your head, it stays there." She didn't hesitate. "Show me." He slid an accordion folder across the desk. She asked where it came from. He said he didn't know her name, only that she worked in foreign travel logistics, prepping Jakarta, and couldn't stay quiet. Jasmine opened the folder. The first page was a memo to the First Lady's office, bold language, heavy red lines, clear signs someone was trying to rewrite the truth. The next page showed 2 flights, one labeled diplomatic, one labeled charter. The charter had a strange stop in Geneva, Switzerland. She asked who was on the second plane. He said, "No names, but it took off 6 hours after the official party." With no press, no explanation, then came a handwritten note, neat and narrow: "I won't take part in that trip. I've already told him I won't be used for the optics. Jasmine recognized the handwriting instantly. She needed to verify it all he told her. She had 6 days before the files vanished, or someone else ran the story. She studied every page knowing they were authentic and told him. I'll handle it, he warned her. Go live with this, and you won't get to go back to quiet, she replied. Then let them try. She left without another word, drove north, made 3 calls before she reached Dallas, 1 to her chief of staff, 1 to a reporter she trusted, and 1 to a friend on the oversight committee. And when she finally went live 6 days later, she made sure every word, every document, every fact was impossible to ignore. Asterisk. His phone buzzed again, but he didn't check it. He muttered, she's lying. She doesn't have anything. She's bluffing. She's making this up. Hope Kelton, his senior legal advisor, stood just to the side of the resolute desk, not looking up from her notepad, and said, sir, respectfully, those documents didn't look fake. They were on TV. Anyone can print a damn form and wave it around. He snapped. Why didn't we know she had that stuff? She's on the oversight committee. They have legal access to more than they used to. Remember that subpoena we pushed back against in February? He froze. That subpoena had seemed minor at the time. Just routine oversight into diplomatic travel expenses. They'd stalled, pushed deadlines, buried it under legal review. Now it was clear Crockett had pulled the exact thread they thought was hidden. Where's Melania? And he asked. Hope hesitated. She's in the residence. She saw it. I'm sure she did. Trump turned toward the window, staring at his reflection like it didn't belong there anymore, exhaling long and slow. Get her down here, sir. She get her. Hope left without another word in the hallway, passing 2 interns whispering behind a half-closed door. Everyone had seen the broadcast. Even diehard defenders of Trump were silent this time. Downstairs, the press briefing had been canceled twice, the podium empty, correspondents sweating in the August heat, speculating outside the gate. Inside the private residence, the First Lady sat on a couch, TV still glowing faintly, remote in her hand, but the channel unmoving. Ma'am, the president would like to speak with you. Melania didn't move at first, then rose without a word. Back in the Oval, Trump straightened his jacket, planted both hands on the desk, not looking at her when she entered. You want to tell me what the hell that was? Melania didn't flinch. You knew she had those documents. You gave them to her. No, you didn't say that memo was missing. I didn't think I needed to. He stopped cold. I thought we agreed no drama, no headlines. We make it through the next year clean. You smile. I smile. We show up when we have to. That was the deal. She met his eyes. You broke the deal. Silence settled heavy. He didn't yell or throw anything, just stared at the seal on the carpet. What else did you tell her? I told her nothing, but I'm not going to stand next to something I don't believe in. You said Jakarta was about alliances. Instead, you used it for favors, private banking, private meetings. No press. I wasn't going to be window dressing. You humiliated me. No, she said calmly. You did that yourself. The door opened. Hope stepped in. Sir, news networks are rebroadcasting the segment. Foreign outlets picked it up. There's already an EU inquiry on the Switzerland stop. Trump's face drained. She's trying to make me look like a criminal. She didn't say anything illegal happened, Hope replied. She let the document speak. He turned to Melania, more desperate now. You realize this could tank everything. They'll dig up everything. This opens every door. Maybe they should, she said, leaving Hope, closing the door behind her. Trump sank into his chair. No attack lines, no script, just the awareness that Crockett's calm, precise words were echoing through Washington. But outside the gates, Jasmine Crockett wasn't done before sunrise. She walked into WJRE studios in Dallas, having flown in the night before, barely slept, phone on silent, producers waiting, telling her you're the story right now. She smiled slightly. I didn't do anything but read out loud. Exactly, one replied, and everyone heard you. They led her through a back hallway away from cameras. No makeup, no wardrobe, just a folding chair and a mug of black coffee. Her mind racing inside. Host Lillian Griggs was live, polished, fast talking, but fair. Jasmine had done her show before, but this time felt different. Commercial break ended. Lillian welcomed her on air, calling her the woman trending in all 50 states. Jasmine Sut, hands folded. No pressure, Lillian teased. I've been through worse, Jasmine replied, the tone set. Lillian leaned in. Last night you accused the president of using the First Lady and taxpayer money for backdoor dealing. Some say you went too far. I didn't accuse anyone, Jasmine said. I showed paperwork, no charges, no assumptions, just documents the public has the right to see. So you're saying Melania refused the trip because she objected? I'm saying she submitted a formal request to be removed signed a memo citing non-governmental priorities, and I'm saying the second aircraft stop in Switzerland wasn't on any State Department itinerary, and that's not an accusation. The facts don't change because they're inconvenient. Producers exchanged glances, split-screen footage. Rolled her holding documents beside Trump, shouting in hallways, telling its own story. Lillian asked about threats. Jasmine asterisk. Under the bright heat of the studio lights, Jasmine Crockett sat stone, still, her gaze locked directly on the camera, not the anchor. She wasn't here for small talk or political games. She was here to drop something that would split the air in Washington. She began calm but sharp, saying the public schedule for the First Lady's recent overseas trip was a fabrication. The anchor hesitated for half a second. The control room went silent. Producers froze. Then Jasmine slid her hand into a slim folder. Pulling out printed pages, the top stamped confidential, she read lines about altered security clearances, misused taxpayer funds, and manipulated itineraries, all connected to the president's inner circle. She explained that 2 planes had been booked, 1 official, 1 personal. The second plane stopped quietly in Switzerland for closed-door banking meetings unrelated to any government purpose. She showed a withdrawal request signed by the First Lady herself, stating the official summit had been replaced with private engagements. She recited names, dates, and routing codes with surgical precision. Every fact grounded in the paperwork on the desk in front of her. Social media began to ignite in real time, hashtags forming before her. Segment was halfway through. News producers and rival networks started calling their political desks the West Wing. Communications teams scrambled for a response while Trump himself muted the television in the residence, watching her lips move without hearing the words. Jasmine wasn't finished. She read aloud from a memo written by the First Lady's own chief of staff, urging cancellation of the trip due to questionable itinerary changes and resource misuse. She looked into the lens and delivered the final line: "You can debate the politics, but the documents do not lie." The anchor didn't even try to move to the next question. The studio fell into an electric hush. 5 minutes after the broadcast, hashtag Crockett was right was trending worldwide. And across the country, people knew they had just witnessed a political earthquake. 6 days earlier, in a quiet office in Texas, a man had warned her, "Once you see this, you can't unsee it, and if you go live with it, there's no going back to quiet." Her answer had been the same then as it was in her eyes on camera. "Let them try." ***. Melania's memo to her chief of staff read, "I will not allow myself to be used in a context that violates trust or abuses our security protocols if my absence raises questions. So be it." Jasmine laid it down slowly. She tried, she said, but no one listened. She looked around the room. "Eyes steady, you're listening now." For the next few minutes, no one spoke, not even the chairwoman. Outside news crews broke from commercial segments mid-interview to report that Crockett had just played what they were calling the Melanian tape. By the time the hearing ended, clips were already circulating. Every news site had updated its homepage. Social media feeds froze as hashtags flooded. Even Fox, MSNBC, and BBC led with the same headline: "First Lady heard in secret tape refused to support Trump's financial moves." Inside the White House, Press Secretary Nadine Floor took the podium to try to contain the damage. "We have not authenticated that recording at this time. The First Lady has no comment," a reporter shouted. "Is the voice hers?" Nadine dodged, and that silence was everything. Jasmine didn't speak to reporters as she left the building. She didn't need to. The court of public opinion made its decision, and for once it wasn't swayed by loyalty spin or sound bites. It was swayed by a voice people had ignored for too long, until someone finally gave it a microphone. But Jasmine knew this wasn't the end, because after the silence fades, retaliation usually follows by the following. Monday, the world felt different, quieter but heavier. Every news cycle still ran clips of the tape, dissected frame by frame, word by word. Talk shows brought on linguists to confirm. The voice panelists debated Melania's intentions. Some said she was complicit by staying silent for so long. Others argued she had tried to speak in the only way she could, and Jasmine Crockett didn't say much that week. She declined interviews, turned down invites, issued one written statement through her office: "The documents and testimony have been submitted to appropriate oversight authorities. I trust the American people to make their own judgments about what leadership should look like." Behind the scenes, she met with federal attorneys, ethics officials, and a quiet circle of lawmakers who until now had kept their distance. The evidence was real, the stakes were clear, what had started as a political grenade was now something else entirely. A test of courage. On Thursday, President Trump addressed the nation from the White House lawn. No teleprompter, no press allowed to ask questions. The First Lady has done nothing wrong, he said, jaw tight. These attacks are politically motivated and deeply disrespectful. We will not be intimidated by false narratives and weak-minded people pretending to be heroes. He didn't mention Jasmine by name. He didn't have to. She watched the clip from her office unmoved. Deandra, standing beside her, asked, "You worried?" "No." Jasmine said, "He's playing defense now, and badly." "But what about the next move?" "There's always a next move," she replied. "But now, so do we." That night, her team received a packet from a journalist at the Baltimore Ledger. Inside were copies of emails between a Treasury official and someone listed only as LT, referencing backdated approvals for diplomatic travel expenditures tied to the Jakarta trip. She didn't even have to open the files to know what it meant. The machine was still running and trying to patch the damage faster than it was unraveling, but it didn't matter because the public had already shifted in Des Moines. A retired school teacher told a local reporter, "I don't care what party she's in." That Crockett woman told the truth, and that matters more than loyalty. In Phoenix, a group of high school students organized a public records request campaign, demanding clarity on all executive travel since 2021, and in Washington, murmurs began in rooms Jasmine hadn't been invited into before. Not rumors, murmurs of something more. Respect. Still, she knew better than to celebrate. She'd won a round, not a war. At home that weekend, she sat with her mother on the small back porch of her DC row house. The sky was a deep orange and cicadas buzzed lazily in the heat. Her mom sipped iced tea. "You ever think about backing off?" she asked. "All the time," Jasmine replied. "So why don't you?" Jasmine looked out at the narrow alley, quiet and still. "Because when I was 19, I watched a man lie under oath and get promoted 6 months later. Because when I was 25, a woman in my neighborhood lost her job for speaking up about a contractor who stole city funds. And because Melania and Trump, whatever you think of her, tried to stop something she knew was wrong, and the whole system moved on like she never said a word." Her mom leaned back and nodded. "That's enough reason." Jasmine finished her tea and stood stretching. "There'll be more hearings, more records, more people trying to flip the narrative." Her mom smiled. "Then you better keep talking," and that was the plan. Jasmine wasn't in this for a headline or a campaign or a legacy. She was in it because someone had to be, not perfect, not polished, but prepared to show the country what accountability looked like when it wasn't filtered through a press release, and prepared to remind the people in charge that if truth makes them uncomfortable, maybe they shouldn't be in charge. Truth doesn't shout, it doesn't bully, it waits, it sits quietly in folders, on voicemail tapes, inside conversations, and when someone has the courage to bring it forward, it doesn't need spin, it speaks for itself. If this story moved, you share it, talk about it, ask questions, hold your leaders accountable on both sides, and most of all, stay awake. The next Jasmine might already be in your neighborhood, waiting for her moment. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that challenge the noise and chase what matters. ***.